Just get on the bus going somewhere, next thing you know, you in somebody's apartment having sex. But say your ex is now telling people that you are not his biological father. Samar's real biological father is another man. Cooper says there's no way he's your son's father.
I met Miss Call on the train, coming back from the gym. She sits in front of me, continuous staring at me. Hey.
This is after you met on the train?
Yes.
The same day?
Yes, ma'am.
We did have unprotected sex that night, Your Honor.
Just get on the bus going somewhere, next thing you know, you in somebody's apartment having sex. It's not funny. Now we've got a little person here. How soon after that did you find out she was pregnant?
I would say about a month or so.
When truth finally arrives, it does not knock softly. It breaks the door open, exposing everything hidden in the dark. And in the courtroom of Judge Lauren Lake, where emotions collide with evidence, the greatest heartbreak often comes not from lies spoken aloud, but from the truths revealed by a DNA test. This narrative explores how a single DNA test can alter the direction of a family's life, shifting relationships, identities, trust, security, and the very meaning of parenthood. In Judge Lauren Lake's courtroom, the truth is not always gentle. Sometimes it enters like a storm. And yet, despite the shock, anger, confusion, and regret, the truth still matters, because truth, as many say, changes everything. The journey that unfolds here is not only legal but emotional, spiritual, and deeply human. It is a space where the relationship between law and justice becomes painfully clear. The law can determine legal fatherhood, child support responsibility, and custody, but justice concerns the heart, fairness, and the long-term stability of a child's life. In many DNA test cases, people come in believing they already know the truth, but then the results arrive. And it is in those seconds after the envelope is opened that people experience one of the most vulnerable and defining moments of their lives. Parents who hoped for certainty may find doubt, while those who expected denial may face confirmation. People regret taking these tests sometimes, believing things were easier when truth stayed silent. Yet silence allows confusion to grow, and confusion, especially in family relationships, becomes deeply damaging, not only for adults but for the child who grows up between stories rather than facts. There is a powerful philosophical element to this situation, tying into the concept of justice in jurisprudence, where fairness is not simply about legal correctness, but about emotional reality. Judge Lauren Lake often highlights this. Being a parent is not only about biology, it is also about responsibility, presence, love, and the decisions we make long after passion fades and promises are broken. The court, therefore, becomes not only a place for settling legal questions, but a stage where the deepest fears of betrayal, abandonment, and identity are confronted. This description also touches on the broader cultural conversations reflected in the Game-Changing Attorney podcast, where discussions explore how legal outcomes shape lives outside the courtroom, especially in moments where evidence becomes the defining factor. In the evidence stage in a divorce case, DNA results can become pivotal, affecting custody arrangements, emotional healing, and the overall stability of the family unit. The court does not simply rule on genetics, it rules on futures. The presence of adverse inference in evidence law plays a role when someone refuses to take a DNA test, creating an assumption that the truth may not be in their favor. But when the test is taken, even when results are shocking, the clarity allows the legal process to finally move forward. Many families have shared their journeys through Celebrate Recovery testimonies, where the process of healing begins only after acknowledging painful realities. The acceptance of truth can hurt, but it also allows for rebuilding identity, faith, and emotional safety. Some individuals later speak about how acknowledging the biological truth helped them rebuild healthier lives, healthier parenting styles, and healthier boundaries. This scenario also reflects modern cheating stories, where fractured relationships create emotional chaos. Infidelity often becomes intertwined with paternity uncertainty, where the emotional betrayal is intensified by the possibility of broken biological ties. Whether intentional or accidental, unprotected intimacy leaves long-term consequences that no one imagines in the moment of passion. Yet in the middle of confusion and anger, children remain innocent. They are never at fault. They are never to blame. And it is that guiding principle that Judge Lauren Lake reinforces throughout every case. The Supreme Court of Parenthood must always honor the child's emotional, psychological, and developmental stability first. Child support is not merely financial. It is a reflection of responsibility, presence, and long-term commitment. A biological father may not always be the emotional father, and sometimes the one who stayed, loved, and cared ends up being the true parent in every meaningful way. Stories like these also intersect with adoption stories, where families form not from blood but from choice. Parenthood, therefore, becomes an identity defined not only by DNA but by dedication. Sometimes the person who wants the child is not the biological father. Sometimes the biological father wants no connection at all. This imbalance creates emotional strain, but the court is there to ensure the child has clarity, consistency, and legal security. Such episodes, often shared in full episodes on platforms like Paternity Court, show a pattern. Many people enter the courtroom thinking they are simply solving a scientific question. But when they leave, they realize the truth carries emotional weight far beyond paperwork. Their lives, relationships, identities, and futures shift in those few seconds when Judge Lauren Lake reads the results aloud. Tears come, anger rises, relief appears, silence fills the room, and in that silence, truth settles. The relationship between law and justice becomes evident again. Law can declare who is legally responsible, but justice asks who is emotionally invested. Law can enforce child support payments, but justice asks whether the parent is emotionally present. Law can record a name on a birth certificate, but justice asks what that name truly means in a child's heart. Meanwhile, many individuals share their reflections in the Divorce Course podcast, where families discuss how DNA and infidelity affected their marriages, identities, and healing processes. The discussions reveal how marriages often unravel not in the courtroom, but in the quiet moments of suspicion, doubt, and emotional distance, long before paperwork is filed. A podcast evidence conversation provides perspective. Emotional healing requires honesty first. This journey is deeply human. It involves identity, trust, loyalty, responsibility, love, pride, fear, and vulnerability. And in the courtroom of Judge Lauren Lake, those emotions are not hidden. They are acknowledged, validated, and guided toward resolution. Because in the end, no matter how chaotic the story, no matter how painful the truth, no matter how unexpected the results, the child deserves clarity. And clarity is the beginning of healing. When the DNA results reveal an unexpected truth, the shock travels through every layer of a person's identity. For many, the first instinct is denial. They question the test, question the circumstances, question memories, promises, timelines, and every moment that led them to believe in a reality that now stands rewritten. In Judge Lauren Lake's courtroom, this emotional upheaval is visible in the way shoulders collapse, breath catches, and tears fall, not out of weakness, but because truth reshapes the internal map of one's life. The truth changes everything, a phrase repeated often in legal, emotional, and spiritual discussions. But it is not a slogan, it is lived reality. A DNA test can affirm hope or shatter certainty. It can repair broken trust or deepen emotional wounds. For some, it opens doors to start a new relationship with a child they never knew was theirs. For others, it closes a chapter they believed would last forever. The consequences ripple into families, social circles, financial responsibilities, and personal identity. And yet, despite the emotional shock, this truth is necessary. Because without truth, there can be no genuine healing. The child deserves to know where they come from, not just genetically, but emotionally and historically. The identity of a child is built through love, presence, storytelling, culture, and belonging. When identity is disrupted or built on uncertainty, there is a quiet ache that grows with time. This is why Judge Lauren Lake emphasizes that the child is the center always. The adults, regardless of their pain, must make room for the child's emotional stability. There is also a legal dimension to this emotional outcome. When a man signs a birth certificate, the law recognizes him as a father, regardless of biology. This can lead to complex situations in the evidence stage in a divorce case, where paternity becomes intertwined with child support, visitation rights, custody agreements, and long-term financial obligations. A biological father may not always be the legal father. A legal father may not always be the biological parent. And the court must balance fairness, certainty, and the best interests of the child. In many legal discussions, including those shared on the Game Changing Attorney podcast, attorneys explain how DNA results often force families to confront deeper truths they avoided for years. The relationship between law and justice becomes particularly clear here. Law operates with structure, signatures, timelines, records, DNA reports. Justice moves through emotion, loyalty, betrayal, regret, forgiveness. Together, they converge in the courtroom, where Judge Lauren Lake navigates both with empathy and firmness. The emotional narratives behind these cases often resemble the themes heard in Celebrate Recovery testimonies, where individuals share how hitting emotional rock bottom forced them to change their lives. Some speak of infidelity, some of loneliness, some of raising children without support, some of discovering truths they were unprepared for. And yet, many of them describe how acknowledging painful truth became the first step in regaining personal peace. But not every journey ends with peace immediately. Some people feel regret taking a DNA test, wishing they could return to the moment before truth arrived. But that desire is rooted not in longing for lies, but in longing for emotional safety, a safety that was never real to begin with. When denial crumbles, grief begins. Grief for lost assumptions, grief for broken trust, grief for a version of life that now feels distant. In the context of cheating stories, paternity uncertainty often begins when emotional boundaries break. The betrayal is not only physical, it is psychological. It shatters the concept of exclusivity, loyalty, and relational identity. The partner who experiences betrayal feels their sense of self destabilize. And when a child becomes involved, that emotional wound deepens, because the betrayal impacts not only the romantic relationship, but also the family structure. Yet through all the heartbreak, there is also potential growth. Many who experience these situations later describe a sense of emotional maturity, awareness, and strength they did not have before. They come to understand love not as possession or passion, but as responsibility, honesty, and sacrifice. In conversations featured on the Divorce Course podcast, individuals describe how their marriages shifted the moment suspicion entered. Doubt does not need confirmation to cause damage. The presence of uncertainty alone creates emotional distance, mistrust, and resentment. And when DNA testing becomes part of the narrative, the process often forces individuals to confront not only the truth, but the reasons trust was already fragile. There is another key element: adverse inference in evidence law. When one person refuses to take a DNA test or avoids confirming identity, the legal system assumes there may be hidden truth. Refusal becomes evidence in itself. This reinforces how truth cannot be avoided indefinitely. Whether willingly or unwillingly, truth enters the conversation eventually. And yet, while legal clarity is crucial, emotional healing must also be considered. Many who go through these experiences share reflections similar to those in adoption stories, where the understanding of family expands beyond biology. Parenthood becomes about who shows up, who loves consistently, who teaches, guides, comforts, supports, and sacrifices. Biology may create a life, but love sustains it. This is why Judge Lauren Lake consistently emphasizes emotional responsibility. The courtroom is not a space to punish one adult or reward another. It is a place to advocate for the child. Whether the biological father is present or absent, whether the legal father remains involved or steps back, whether the mother acknowledges mistakes or struggles with accountability, the core message remains. The child must not suffer for the adult's decisions. In some cases, family members become deeply invested emotionally, such as grandparents, siblings, or extended relatives. These connections can add complexity to the emotional landscape. When DNA results shift the narrative, these family members must also grieve the loss of roles, expectations, and identity. Their love remains real, but the legal structure changes. And yet, for many families, the moment of truth becomes the turning point. After the tears fall, after anger softens, after silence settles, a new path emerges. A path built on truth rather than assumption. A path built on clarity rather than confusion. A path built on emotional honesty rather than avoidance. This is the moment where healing begins. Because once truth is known, the journey forward can finally become real. When the dust begins to settle after the revelation of a DNA test, the emotional atmosphere shifts into a quieter, more reflective phase. The raw shock fades, replaced by the weight of understanding. This stage is where individuals begin processing the long-term effects of what has been revealed. In Judge Lauren Lake's courtroom, this transition is not rushed. She understands that truth, once delivered, must be absorbed, acknowledged, and integrated into the emotional and legal fabric of each person's life. Many people describe this moment as a crossroads. Some choose resentment. They hold onto bitterness about the betrayal, the confusion, or the painful realization that what they believed was real was only partially true. Yet others choose acceptance. Acceptance does not mean the situation was fair or painless. It simply means choosing to move forward without letting the past dictate the future. It means recognizing that healing begins when denial ends. This process reflects a deeper understanding of the relationship between law and justice. The law settles the factual question, who is the biological parent? But justice asks, how do we move forward in a way that protects the emotional well-being of the child? Law creates clarity. Justice demands compassion. Judge Lauren Lake operates at the intersection of these two worlds, ensuring that families are not only told the truth, but guided toward emotional recovery. In some cases, individuals experience profound regret taking a DNA test, wishing they could return to a time before the truth was known. But this regret is often rooted in fear, not hatred of the truth itself, but fear of what the truth changes. The fear of losing a child you thought was biologically yours. The fear of becoming legally responsible for a child you may not share DNA with. The fear of emotional distance growing between family members, relationships shifting, and identities being restructured. But in time, many come to understand that clarity, even when painful, creates a foundation for stability. A child cannot grow in uncertainty. They cannot build identity on doubt. They cannot understand belonging when surrounded by conflicting stories. And so, the truth, even when uncomfortable, becomes a gift for the child's emotional future. This truth resonates with many who have spoken in Celebrate Recovery testimonies, where personal struggles eventually transform into sources of strength. Healing begins with honesty. Emotional growth begins with accountability. And forgiveness becomes possible only when the truth is fully acknowledged. Whether the pain comes from infidelity, abandonment, confusion, or unresolved trauma, recovery begins when the truth is no longer resisted. The emotional toll of these situations is often amplified by financial realities. Child support is not merely a system of payment, it is acknowledgement of responsibility. The law, guided by standards influenced even by Supreme Court interpretations, ensures that the child's well-being is protected financially. But Judge Lauren Lake emphasizes another truth. Money alone is not enough. A child deserves emotional presence, parental consistency, support, and genuine care. It is here that the heart of the matter reveals itself. Parenthood is not determined only by biology. The biological father may contribute DNA, but the true parent is the one who chooses to stay. The one who wakes up every day and chooses to love, protect, teach, support, and nurture. In many family stories, including adoption stories, the deepest parent-child bonds form not because of biology, but because of commitment and compassion. In emotional discussions similar to those found in the Divorce Course podcast, many reflect on how relationships fail long before legal separation. Trust fades slowly, sometimes silently. Communication weakens, emotional distance grows, and suspicion becomes a quiet presence in the home. The evidence stage in divorce cases often reveals that emotional separation began months or years before legal paperwork was filed. DNA uncertainty only intensifies those emotional fractures. Understanding this requires a nuanced view of the concept of justice in jurisprudence. Justice is not simply punishment or reward. Justice is restoration. It is ensuring that the child is not harmed by adult conflict. It is ensuring that emotional truth is acknowledged in addition to biological truth. It is understanding that responsibility must be honored even when relationships change. The presence of adverse inference in evidence law reminds us that avoiding the truth does not prevent the truth from being discovered. When one refuses to participate in testing or accountability, the legal system interprets avoidance as meaningful evidence. The truth does not hide forever, it waits. And when it emerges, it changes everything. This journey also connects to cultural narratives surrounding cheating stories, where emotional betrayal often leads to long-lasting trauma. But trauma, when acknowledged and healed, can become a source of wisdom. People learn to value loyalty, transparency, and emotional safety more deeply after experiencing the pain of broken trust. The ability to rebuild trust becomes a testament to emotional resilience. The emotional complexity involved in these cases extends beyond the individuals directly involved. Grandparents, siblings, extended family, and friends all experience the emotional shock of shifting identities and broken expectations. The community surrounding the family must also learn to adjust. And yet, through all of this, the core truth remains unchanged. The child must not be lost in the emotional fallout. This is where Judge Lauren Lake's work becomes emotionally profound. She reminds families that every decision, every reaction, every word spoken in anger or pain affects the child's emotional development. A child internalizes conflict. A child absorbs silence. A child feels distance. And so, after the DNA results are delivered, the most important question becomes, what now? The answer is simple, yet deeply meaningful. We move forward with truth. We rebuild with honesty. We protect the child's emotional world with care, structure, and love. Some families choose forgiveness. Others choose distance. Some co-parent with success and mutual respect. Others navigate separate paths. But in every case, healing becomes possible because the truth is now known. Just as full episodes of these cases demonstrate time and time again, the journey is not about winning or losing. It is about clarity, closure, and emotional growth. Some parents step into their roles more fully once the truth is confirmed. Others step back when the truth reveals their place is elsewhere. But in every case, the child benefits from certainty. Even when emotional wounds are deep, even when betrayal feels overwhelming, even when regret lingers, healing becomes possible because truth is now the foundation rather than doubt. This is the power of a DNA test. This is the emotional and legal reality of paternity. This is the intersection where law and justice meet. This is where stories break and where new stories begin. And in the courtroom of Judge Lauren Lake, that beginning is always built on truth.